Hey guys, it's old sleepy reader here, Damien, here with some comic book thoughts. Oh, you can't see it. I got this cool Nexus T-shirt that I really like. I think I got it from Steve Rude's website, but I really like this one. I even got compliments on it at work, and then they asked me, "Who is that?" And then they give me a blank stare when I say Nexus. I think someone asked me if it was Captain Marvel. I think. But anyway, I'm here with a stack of comics from recent weeks that I've read. Just thought I'd throw out some thoughts about them. First one at the top here is the Superman special, which, interesting that there's a Superman special. I'm not sure why. There was Action Comics 1000, and then there was an Action Comics special. So now there's a Superman special. Although I'm glad to buy it. More Superman by one last Superman by Tomasi and Gleason. Maybe they'll be back on Superman someday, or off onto some other really cool project. They've been great collaborators. Always like it best when Gleason is doing the art, and he's not doing the art here. But this is a nice payoff for people who've been reading the Tomasi and Gleason Superman all along from Rebirth. With its it just goes back to take care of one last detail from an early issue in their Rebirth run, where they went to this lost island, Dinosaur Island, with the soldiers fighting the dinosaurs. That was already a throwback to Darwin Cook's, what's it called? Not the Dawn of Justice. Oh man, New Frontier. The art, though not by Gleason, is very decent superhero art. Coloring, I don't know. Is this Gleason's usual colorist? I can't find the credits, of course. They're not near the beginning. They're probably here they are. Gabe Eltab, colorist. I don't know. The coloring's not bad. My usual complaint that it's a little too much browns and darkness, like kind of grayish, fuzzy backgrounds. I don't like that kind of thing. But other than that, it mostly served the story well, and a well-told, fun story. Definitely, well, it's not like a Silver or Bronze Age story, but it does have that lighter feeling of just doing something good, and it certainly has kind of a cheesy, corny ending that you just have to accept the cheesy, corny, old-fashioned comic book feel. But really, it's also a story for continuity geeks. It's tying up a loose thread in a way that older comics probably didn't have the luxury to do. So they go back and they rescue and bring out of this sort of pocket of past time, they bring this World War II veteran back to our times. Other than that, it was kind of cheesy at the end. A weird thing is that, so he has one leg, let me see if I can find it. He has one leg that's a wooden leg. And yeah, we see there that he doesn't have a leg. So I'm just concerned about, I was trying to follow the whole leg thing. I guess they brought back his wooden leg with him already. So he now has, here we see what looks like still part of a wooden leg there. But later it turns out his bottom part of his leg is turning into a dinosaur leg for no particular reason. Where do we see it again? I got confused and I thought it was a wooden leg turning into a dinosaur leg, but I guess where his amputated leg is now turning into a dinosaur leg. I don't know, because he was scratched or bitten by a dinosaur. And at the end, they just take him to Star Labs. I think it's Star Labs. And Star Labs removes the... Star Labs removes the dinosaur leg, and I presume gives him kind of a robotic cyborg type of leg. Yeah, I kind of wonder if something's going to come of that leg that Star Labs is keeping. Or could he show up again, the captain show up again and be turning into a dinosaur or have some other thing? At the moment, it seems like his story's all wrapped up. He's going to give the dog tags of his fallen comrades to their distant relatives, survivors. And we get kind of a closure for the Kent family. And then there's 2 more stories, and it says never the end. So that was a nice sentimental closure for the for this run, these creators' runs. I enjoyed it all. As I say, kind of on the corny, cheesy side, but I enjoyed that. Then we got an interesting thing because it's called Strays and Strangers, and it's a short piece about Superman rescuing a part of Metropolis from this giant crayfish-like creature. I forget what they call it. But it's drawn by Brian Hitch, of the Ultimates and the Authority and more recently of the Justice League. And written by Mark Russell, best known for his amazing Flintstones comic. And now he's doing Snagglepuss. And he did another Superman story in the other special, an Action Comics special, that was kind of a political jab at Donald Trump through Lex Luthor. But this is just a straight story that would have a straight sort of representing Superman as this good guy, as the big father figure who makes things right, the kinder, gentler superhero, and beautifully, beautifully drawn. Saving people, but also not hurting the monster because he knows the monster is a deep sea Atlantean creature who just got up here by accident. And then at the end he saves the dog. And this is bad for me. I'm spoiling all of these, but sorry about that. It's just the way my mind was going on these stories. But so what's strange about it seems like it should have been in the 1000th issue, perhaps. Maybe it was originally written for that. Because it has a neutral Superman kind of storyline and just about the essence of Superman. I thought it was really good. And although I don't think they liked it as much, I was listening to iFanboy and they sort of suggested that this was Mark Russell struggling so that he could enter the mainstream of DC Comics. So that would be interesting if he is going to transition into more of a full-time comic book writer, so to speak, one that does all the big franchise characters. Judging from this one story, I think I would enjoy seeing him tackle a Superman series. Although I guess that, of course, for the moment is all sewn up by Brian Michael Bendis, which I think is unfortunate. I'm interested to see Brian Michael Bendis' take, but I'd like to continue to see other writers. Speaking of other writers, I've never heard of Ian Flynn, but this was a good story that I think kind of picked up on the continuity from Superwoman about this character, the Atomic Skull, who is in the process of reforming, and I think he works for the what do they call them? The superhero squad of the superhero crimes squad of the police. The art was amazing by Carrie Andrews. I love the idea of him doing creator-owned projects, but I also love the idea of him doing classic superheroes. I'd love to see more of him on Superman or Green Lantern or something like that. But anyway, this was a good story too. But I like the fact that the Atomic Skull is kind of this torn character. He kind of sees the injustices on the side of good by the penal system and the police behavior to an extent. And when Superman punches the bad guy, the first thing he says afterwards is, "Holy crap, is he okay?" And Superman says, "Just unconscious." But I kind of wonder that looks like more than just unconscious. But I guess Superman knows what power he can dish out. But I like it when the Atomic Skull says, "You call it optimism, but it's really just lies and broken promises. People like you drove Arnold to do what he did here today." And Superman, so it's an interesting moral back and forth. He almost would make a good team up for Superman. And Superman says, "I hope you can let go of your anger, and even if things can't be right between us, I hope it doesn't poison the good man I know you can be." So I really like that struggle there. I thought that was really cool. And it also ends with not the end. So I wonder where this storyline will pop up again. I think it would be really cool because I think it really suits Superman to do another one of those anthologies of lots of short and medium-length Superman stories, kind of either weaving in and out of the continuity or just out of continuity. But I know they've tried the out-of-continuity thing before in recent times with the Adventures of Superman. But given the seeming popularity of these 3 anthology books that we've had out recently, it might be fun if they could find a format that people would keep buying, keep going for this kind of thing in. My usual problem with the computer. Okay. The computer goes to sleep while I'm filming. Isn't it obvious the computer's in use to the computer? I don't know. Another very good comic, I guess I should kind of speed up, is Black Hammer, Age of Doom. Such a pleasure to see Dean Ormston and Dave Stewart draw this world. We're getting, it's now becoming clear, I think, that part of this story arc is going to be the new Black Hammer, the daughter of the old Black Hammer's journey through different netherworlds, other dimensions, fantasy worlds, if you will. I won't spoil the ending of this one, but it's a cool reveal of where she's going next after Hell. Jeff Lemire and company can just keep reimagining all this stuff that to us old or new, but deep end comic book readers can really enjoy and spot all the influences. But I think even if you can't spot all the influences, it's a good story. It's a fun ride. It's not to be taken too seriously. It's a bit melancholy, but really it's pulpy fun, but of the highest order. So I'm still all in on Black Hammer. Still a little pissed at them for ending on a ending on a cliffhanger, and then returning with a new numbering and slightly new title. Because anyone jumping in on issue 1 of this is gonna struggle a bit. If they can go back and pick up the trades, that's great. And there's not a summary of what came previously. There might have been in issue 1. But all in all, a good package. I like that there's not an ad on the back, but kind of a redo of one of the panels. So really loving that. Snagglepuss Chronicles is beginning to win me over. It still has its basic flaw that there's really no need for it to be Snagglepuss and for it to somehow... It doesn't weave into anything about the world of the Hanna-Barbera cartoons or a cartoony world or anything like that. It's purely a historical, political story. But it's a really interesting one, and I guess as the threads are drawing together by this issue, I'm definitely glad I stuck with it. I almost dropped it early on, and I thought, I liked Flintstones so much, I'll just keep giving it a try. I have to admire him for not trying to replicate the Flintstones, although I kind of wanted him to replicate the Flintstones. By him, I mean the artist Mark Russell. I even feel like the art has been getting a bit better. Maybe the artist has been getting into it more. It's still kind of a passionless art, but it seems to be working better. It's hit into high gear. What is Mark Russell going to do with the final issue? Because I think there's only one more left. Will he just is he following some strict historical template here. Was Tennessee Williams or someone like Tennessee Williams able to kind of bring down the McCarthy panel or whatever they were, the investigation, and make it look so foolish in the eyes of the American people that they lost all their power. I mean, that did eventually happen to them, but I don't know my history well enough to remember how that happened. Or are we headed to sort of tragic ending? I also don't know anything about the life of Tennessee Williams. I just am vaguely familiar with his famous plays like The Glass Menagerie. Oh, and I do want to point out that Snagglepuss's covers are amazing. Unfortunately, they're nothing like the art on the inside. Not sure if they're all by the same artist. I guess I should look into that. But if the comic had more of the sort of kooky style of these covers, I think it would have gone a long way to help me get into it sooner. Yeah, looking in this issue 3, just flashing into the art, and it kind of bothers me. So it has somewhat improved. I don't think the colorist has changed. I think it's still Paul Mounts, who's a very respected colorist, but maybe even he's kind of getting into it better. Who's the cover artist, does it say? Ben Caldwell, cover artist. That name's really familiar, Ben Caldwell. This is not Ben Caldwell's usual art look, I don't think. I think he's got a more line kind of thing, and these are more like paintings. This one's particularly amazing. Yeah. Anyway, I'm glad I stuck with it. And I stuck with Mystic U. I really was enjoying myself in issues 1 and 2. It's just 3 oversized issues. But now I was quite unsatisfied with the way it wrapped up. So unless you really want to explore this part of and I was really enjoying it, this mystical part of the DC universe, re-envisioned around a Harry Potter-like school, or a bit Harry Potter-ish, which I really was enjoying, but it just somehow kind of fell flat, and it felt like just all the characters were being maneuvered to the places they needed to be to wrap up the story, and ultimately the story wrap-up was not that satisfying. So for people who haven't been reading it in floppies, I'm less confident about recommending the trade to you, or warning you that it's not going to have as satisfying an ending as it should. It's still an interesting ride. But it's always, I guess this is the advantage of serial comics that never really end. If you don't ever really end, you can't disappoint people with your ending. Not that, I don't know. Anyway, speaking of serial comics, here's the Terrifics, issue number 4, which is well known to be kind of a take on the Fantastic Four, using some of these more minor DC characters. And it's getting a little better. I thought it would get a whole lot better because an artist who I really felt was well suited for this has jumped on, Doc Shaner, who, like, he did a really awesome 2-issue Captain Marvel story back in the what was it called? Not the Crossroads. Back in that big failed DC event. Anyway, Doc Shaner, I've seen really good stuff by him. It's kind of this cool, modern, retro-looking art. But in this, the art's pretty good, but it's closer to the DC mainstream than his usual art. It's a little less, it feels a little less retro. And I'm saddened by that, especially because this is kind of trying to evoke the old-fashioned Fantastic Four, that we know going all the way back to the early 1960s with the squabbling team members and the like. The real standout character, and I think Jeff Lemire knows it because he has her narrate this issue, is their version of Phantom Girl, this, I guess, ancestor of the Legion's Phantom Girl, who comes from this unpronounceable planet, Big Dzol. BGZTL. And so she narrates it, and her take on the other characters is fun to read. What I realized in an actual Fantastic Four story in its glory day, there'd be much more density. The same events could have happened. Like they're taking her to her home planet to visit her parents, and on the way they get sucked up by this space junk collector, and they fight. They have various adventures and fight various things in the junk ship. It's kind of evokes Star Wars a bit, with the trash compactor, and they meet a motley crew of aliens and fight them. But if this were an old-fashioned true Silver Age comic, I realized as I was reading it, at least I think, we would have gotten a lot more about everything. Like we would have, it might have been done in a clunky way, but we would have, the trash compactor ship would have had its own little story arc. The crew on it, we would have been told more about them, and there would have been some more purpose and little twist to them before we moved on to go visit our Phantom Girls planet. And I wish I would say her name. I just can't remember her name. She's not literally being called Phantom Girl yet. But anyway, if we went back to visit our Phantom Girls planet, my computer tried to fall asleep again. I'm literally boring my computer to sleep. It was a good twist once we did get to Phantom Girls planet. I like that. And interesting last pages. So I feel like all the beats were here, but because of the way the inhibitions of modern comics, we weren't given as much as we could have about everything. And I think it would have had more of that Silver Age charm. So it's moderately improving. I wish there was more to it, but there you go. Okay. While I'm being a bit negative, I really loved the first two issues of Oblivion Song. I don't know if I got to talk about them on any videos yet. The art is very cool, although my least favorite part of the art is the characters' faces. But the coloring is great. The layout, the inventiveness of the world and everything is pleasing. So, and Kirkman gave us a lot of interesting stuff in the first issue and then in the second issue. And it feels like it's kind of slowing down, and it almost feels like the story's ready to end already. And I know that they've already produced like 13 issues or something. I think that's what I read, or he's at least scripted 13 issues. And I know he intends this to be a long run. I guess he can settle into the more slow burn that I believe he often, because I haven't read it in a long time, that I believe he often does in The Walking Dead or something. But it seems like all the issues and problems are laid out there and they're ready to be resolved soon. So I'm sure something new will pop up. I'm definitely sticking with this issue. It's got too many things in it I like. But it did just fizzle a little bit with this issue. Oh, cool back cover. With Gideon Falls, it's just a question of, do I drop it now or do I wait till the first trade's worth of issues have come out and then drop it? It feels to me like it might be interesting in a trade, but for me, it's doling out so little information per issue, especially about the characters. I should like characters right away from the first issue, and certainly by the third issue, I should, if I'm going to stick with the book, I really should, be into these characters. But basically we have the psychiatrist, the crazy guy who sees the black barn, and the priest who's been accused of murder, but now it's been proven he is not the murderer, but he's seen the black barn too. And a few other, there's a policewoman who also is kind of potentially major character who's pregnant. And I really can't get into the psychiatrist and her patient. They just seem like a cliche so far. The priest has hints of interesting things about him. There's something creepy about the whole town, but it might just be the way everything is drawn in this washed out, almost Xeroxed looking style by Sorrentino. I don't love the turn that this art has taken compared to other Sorrentino comics I've read. The artist Andrea Sorrentino, and I don't love, even though it's Dave Stewart coloring, which I usually do love. The washed out brownness of it all, which Dave Stewart handles. If I'm going to read a comic with a lot of browns in it, I want it to be done by Dave Stewart, not by most other colors. But still, it just weighs on me in a kind of sense of dullness. This guy's got a cool beard. But so I'm guessing it'll be issue 5 where there'll be a break or something, and maybe I should stick with it and then buy it in trades. Let's see, issue 4 in June, so that's probably coming up soon. Yeah. Okay. Another disappointment. This one was even much seriouser of a disappointment. The first issue of the New Challengers, supposedly written by Scott Snyder, perhaps more... Well, it's interesting. On the cover, they list Kubert, and is it Andy? Andy Kubert first, and Snyder and Gillespie, the two writers, second. But unlike the other New Age of Heroes, they actually list Scott Snyder and Andy Gillespie first as the writers here, and they don't list Kubert as a plotter or co-storyteller or anything. I don't know if that's just an error. And I don't know how much of Snyder there is in here, but to me, this issue felt like just a piling on of cliches and felt just all wrong for me for the Challengers of the Unknown. I don't know, are they already established as this long-running group that works for some mystical professor who has had groups and groups and groups of challengers after challengers after challengers, and they're always saving the world? Somehow I thought the Challengers of the Unknown went on more limited adventures, so to speak. And I thought they were singular, one group, not multiple groups. But just everything in here felt to me like, I don't know, like cliches. But I want to like a Challengers of the Unknown comic. So I'll continue to get a few more issues. I don't know who this Aaron Gillespie is, who's the co-writer with Snyder. Is this like James Tynion, who was once Snyder's student, and Snyder first brought him on and they always co-wrote? Is that the same kind of thing going on here? I don't know. But it doesn't seem like they have any, even though there's two writers and potentially they're collaborating with the artist too, is the way these things are, New Age of Heroes is supposed to work. But it doesn't seem like there's anything special going on here. It doesn't seem like they have any special context. It's just a concept. It's just another hacked out comic, I guess, or a mediocre concept, mediocre recycled concept applied to the Challengers in an attempt to make something that seems new. Curse Words continues to be great. I think I just say that every month. Wacky, great art, love it. It almost at times feels like Mad Magazine or something to me. But I don't really quite know where the aesthetic comes from throughout this, but I love it. I just wanted to mention it. And then I think what is now currently definitely in my top 5 and maybe my favorite comic book right now is Sacred Creatures, which has just finished issue 6. The first 6 issues are coming out in a trade. This issue is at least 50 pages long, 50 pages of story. And I think all of the issues have been at least 48 pages long. So the trade is going to be a huge chunk of story. Now, it's kind of a story that builds up in layers. It doesn't rush really fast to each new plot point. Instead, it carefully builds up its layers with flashbacks and following different characters and continuously revealing new sides to the story and the mythos of these fallen angels that go back to biblical times. Or I guess they're not quite angels. There was an angel who they managed to kill. But it envelops the story of this angel. Here's the angel there. With just amazing art, amazing storytelling. The only flaw for this series has been issue 1 that started off kind of confusing, but you kind of, at this point, appreciate that confusingness because it was part of the unfolding of this story. It feels like something that can go on as long as Sandman did, and it has a certain Sandman / Lucifer feeling, the Mike Carey Lucifer series. That's the closest things I can compare it to, particularly the Lucifer series. But it's just a delicious read, and I really hope it sells well enough and they keep doing it, because I just want more and more and more of this story. So that's the end of that little stack of comics, or big stack of comics. I've gone 30 minutes again, or a little more. So I'm sure I will be back. Talk to you all.